Hello, in this video I would like to demonstrate some of the functions on this power shield. So this is a shield that fits on an Arduino, and there's these male pins on the bottom. And so if you plug into the Arduino like that, so it plugs in, and then there are female header pins on the top, so anything you plug in here will connect to the Arduino underneath. And this shield is really just an add-on to whatever project you want to make, but it gives some power options for powering up and controlling the board, okay, the Arduino. So with that, then there are a lot of options you have for this. So you'll notice on this diagram, there's J5, J8. So these are connections I can use for jumper connectors and really makes this board very versatile. And so here are some of where these are here. So for example here, so there are a arrangement of 4 male header pins. Here they are in white. And so by using a jumper connector, when I connect 2 of the male pins, that makes a connection through both of those. So now, for example, this connection through this diode is connected to this group of jumpers over here. And that's by making that connection between those 2 there. Okay, there's the diode, there's the push button there. Okay. So in this video, what I want to do is using this push button. And so up here, this set of jumpers, or sorry, this jumper here, number 4, there is a legend here of what the different options are, but basically it allows me to choose how to power the board and therefore the Arduino. So I'm going to use a battery. So there's a screw terminal here, which is right here. So I put a jumper across the middle and the one on the left. Okay, I need to connect to the Arduino itself, either through the 5-volt pin or the V-in pin. I'm going to use a 9-volt battery. So because the Arduino uses 5 volts and this is 9 volts, I need to go into the V-in. So that way the Arduino will use its own power, or sorry, voltage regulator. So that's this pin here, okay? The middle and the bottom one, middle and bottom connects to V-in. There's some others on here I don't really need for this demonstration. There's that one. Okay, so so what this does is when I press this button, it connects this P-channel MOSFET to ground, and that will turn this on, and power will run from the battery to the V-in pin and power it up. The thing is that when I let go, that connection's broken. So I need some way to latch this so it keeps going once I take care of once I release the button, and so power keeps going. So I have an N-channel MOSFET here, and the drain of this one is connected, where are we here? The drain here, sorry, right here through here. The drain is connected to the P-channel MOSFET's gate. And so using this, it will keep this P-channel MOSFET going. And so now there are a lot of options of how to keep this going. And it's connected to this 100 ohm resistor to this set of header pins here. And so for this, I need to use, or I'm going to use, one of the Arduino pins. So pin 4, D4. So I need a connector here. So the center of these is connected to pin 4. So you can't see that here, D4. And then on the left here is connected to this group, this top one here. So if I make this connection and this connection, then D4 will be connected to this MOSFET. So let's do that. So center and left, and there's one here already. Okay. Last thing, I guess I'll need to put in a battery connector and connect the battery, but let me show you the code. Okay, so here we are at the computer, and I guess I didn't mention that this is going to be on an Instructable. So if you want more information, you want the image of the circuitry, you can go to the Instructable and have a look at that and get a copy of this code if you want. So the first thing we do is we need to declare our power pin. So that's the pin that's going to keep the power going. And so that's going to be pin 4. The other thing I want to show is that once it's powered up, you can use that button to subsequently press to turn it off. And so to do that, I need some pin to actually monitor that button. And so this is my off button pin. And I'm actually going to use pin A3. So A3, it's thought to be an analog pin, but in this case, I'm going to use it as a digital pin, right? So I'm just going to detect when that button's pressed, and when the button's pressed, it's going to provide a low signal. So I'm going to look for that digital low, right? 0 volts. And I chose A3 because it's a pin that's not used very much. And so then this would allow me to keep all of the digital pins, D0 really to D13. Or some people just use D2 to D13 for any, connections I need for digital pins. Now you could use an interrupt pin, so like D2 or D3, if it was very important to detect the button press and turn things off right away. But I decided to go with an analog, or one, just a regular digital pin, an analog pin as a digital pin. Okay. If you did have a very complex project, and remember this whole shield is just used as an add-on to a bigger project, you could use one of the digital pins, right? If you had a very long program. So anyways, I put in this code here some dummy function just to give the Arduino something to do. So I'm going to flash an LED on pin 13 just so that you can see that it's working. So that's my do something pin. And then there's a couple of functions here that I made, but let me go down to the setup. So here's the setup. And so in the setup, I'm going to declare that power pin as an output. And so, and then pull it high. And so that's very important to do right away, because this is what's going to keep the power going. Right now, the power is only going while I'm pressing the button. Okay. So now that this power pin is pulled high, power should keep going even once I release the button. Now in the loop, I'm going to check that button because I want to use that button to be able to turn the thing off if I press a second time. So I need to actually give myself some time between powering up the board to where I check the button so I can take my finger off, right? Because if I'm still holding the button when it checks it, then it's just going to power off right away. So I put in that dummy function here and a short delay, 1 second delay. And that just gives me time to see that it's powered and then to take my finger off the button. So my do something function here, this is it here, just a dummy function. But you can put whatever you want in your, your project here. But I'm just going to flash that LED twice. So I'm going to use a for loop, and where I equals 0 and I is less than 2, and increment I. So each time it goes through this, it increments I. Once it reaches 2, it stops. So it's going to turn that pin high, a short delay here, and then turn it low, a short delay, and then another delay. So it's going to basically flash it twice and then leave this. Okay, then we get our delay. And then here I declare that off button as an input. And so when I press the button, it's going to connect this pin to ground. So it's important to declare this as a pull up. And so what this does is it internally connects this pin to the 5 volts. So every time it checks the voltage on this pin, it's going to be 5 volts, except when the button's pressed, it's going to be 0. And so then it can detect that low as you press it. Okay, so input pull up. And then here in the loop, so it's going to go through this forever and ever. Okay, so check the button. So here's that function here. Okay, so it's going to do a digital read. It's going to read that button pin. And remember, it's pulled up high, so normally it's going to be a high. But if it equals low, then it's going to run this function here. Okay, power down. And so here's our power down function. Okay, so in the power down function, we're going to write this power pin as low. That will turn off the MOSFETs. This line we probably don't need, but all this does is just makes the Arduino sit on this line, right? While this is true, where 1 is true, it's just going to stay here. So it's really just waiting for itself to power down. And so the cool thing is you can use this function anytime. So anytime you want to automatically shut off power to the Arduino, you would just call this function. So if my project was I wanted to perform a task 10 times and then shut power off, I can perform it 10 times and then call this function and it would power off. Or if I had a sensor and I wanted to shut the power off once it got dark, and so I have a light sensor in my project, and I monitor that sensor and I'm doing whatever else I need to do in my project, and then when it got dark, I just call this function and then power goes off. Okay, so whoops, so that's what that does. Okay, and so then we're going to check the battery, check the button, see if it's pressed, and then if it's not pressed, we're just going to run our dummy function again. Okay, and so this is all that's on the Arduino right now. Okay, and so you can see actually this is only, this code, including the dummy function, is only 3% of the memory. So lots of space there left for whatever project you have. Very little, 0% of the dynamic memory. All right, so lots of space for whatever project you want. Okay, so here we are back at the shield. Okay, plugged into the Arduino. I did have to make this connection here. So this connects pin A3 to this set of this set of pins to the button. So now I can use A3 to monitor this button if I press it once it's powered up to shut everything down. Okay, so in my dummy function, I'm going to flash an LED. So here's an LED. Long leg is the anode, and I'm going to connect that to the anode to pin 13. Because in the code, that's my do something pin. Okay, so that's connected to 13. And then the cathode is connected to this 220 ohm resistor, which is connected to this blue ground rail. And so I'm going to connect that to ground. So let me just connect that up here because it's all connected along here. Okay, so now, even though the battery is plugged in, you see that the Arduino isn't powering on. Okay, and that's because this P-channel MOSFET is off. So if I press this, it should turn it on. Now there's a bright set of flashes from the bootloader of the Arduino, but then it should start this double flash. So let's try that. There's the double flash. Okay, so now the Arduino is actually working. So, like I said, once it's working, this pin A3 is monitoring this button, looking for a low signal, and if I press it, it should power off. Okay, just like that. The one thing with how this is arranged is you can press it quick enough where it doesn't detect it, because if it's double flashing, it's doing the do something function and not checking the button. So if I push in the middle of a flash, then it won't turn off. So you do have to hold it to turn things off. Okay, but anyways, so that's the auto on, auto off, push button on, off, and the auto shut off using this power shield. In my next video, I'd like to show using these resistors to monitor the battery voltage and then change the function of the Arduino.